Yes, guys, I think we're good to go.
So good evening and welcome to the Immigrant Masterclass. My name is Preeti Menezes and I'm one of the hosts for tonight's event. The Immigrant Project was founded in 2019 and our aim is to empower immigrants by providing them with effective tools and meaningful connections to land their very first job in the United States. Our product offerings, such as Show and Tell, which is a deep dive into domain-specific learning, Ask Me Anything, a live session fireside chat, Job Hacks that provides hacks on networking, resume building, interviews, and very recently, the addition of the Immigrant Masterclass, which is interviews with expert immigrant professionals like Geeta Pyne are free for all. This is the team behind the Immigrant Project. Joining me today is my co-host Bhargavi Reddy and our guest Geeta Pyne. Geeta is working on building next generation affordable digital solutions with a mission to bridge the digital divide. She has extensive experience in technology strategy, architecture, and digital solutions with specializations in SaaS, data, and analytics. She loves to mentor, grow next generation talent, and make a difference, especially to young graduates entering the workforce. She is currently advising international startups on education. Welcome, Geeta, and we're very happy to have you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, Geeta, tell us about the time when you first moved to the United States. What do you remember about the climate for immigrants then?
Yeah, it has been a long time ago. So I'm old. I've been like 20 plus years. I've been in US. So I actually came into California. The land, that time the climate was, because California has been always very, very welcoming. So I think it was not that different with regards to like whether you are coming, immigrant, because most of the Valley people was still like, Asians and, Indians and Chinese. But I think one of the things that was hard was I was in California for a few months, but then I had to move to North Carolina. And there I got a real test of what does it feel like to be an immigrant, right? When I went there, I'm a skinny girl, landed in North Carolina, trying to get a rental car. And the stares that I got, and that gave me like the shock between the West Coast California and the East Coast North Carolina, right? I think we had to do a lot more, kind of like, who are you? What do you bring to the table? And how do you get, inserted as, I was in IBM as a consultant back then in North Carolina. And it was a bit, I would say, challenge to get yourself, acquainted with and get an identity.
Right.
And, but I think one thing always worked back then and now, if you are good in something, right? And if you stick to that, regardless, no matter what people say, you can pretty much do whatever you want. So you have to have a little bit thick skin and stand up with your confidence that, yes, I know I'm good at what I do. And my work will tell, regardless of what I look and how I look and whether I speak with an accent or not.
That's correct. That's true. Very true. Because I think most immigrants, face this, they go through this imposter syndrome, right? Where they feel that they are not good enough, they lack certain, skills, or maybe they don't fit in. But that's not the case because, people come with so much of experience and skills and qualifications backing them, right? But yes, it's a new place, it's a new challenge. But what was really the motivating factor, the deciding factor for you to move to the US specifically?
Absolutely. So I was actually working in Indian Space Research Organization prior to coming to US. And when I decided to leave ISRO, right, I had such a fond memory. I did not want to try yet another Indian company. So my number one goal was I want to just go and see the world and what's out there, right? And so I was the first person from my family to come to US. So that was just one thing. I'm an explorer. I like to, I'm very curious. I'll just go and see what is it out there. The secondly, I would say was the financial aspect of back then what you could earn in India in a research-oriented job under Department of Space versus what you could do. And when you start to see like the, multiplier effect just by the currency, right? I think those were my two, like one, go and see the world and see what's out there because nobody has been there from my family. And B, like, can I do something financially help my family back better if I could come here? And when I came in, I didn't want to know that I'll be here 20 years later and I'm talking to you. I thought I'll just come in, just, check it out and go back and, go back and do something, right? So I think those were the two. And finally, like, I did want, when I came in, I thought I will be able to work for NASA or anywhere, like continue my space journey. Little did I know I was naive. That the whole immigration, the citizenship and the security clearance that is required as a precursor before you can work for the, for NASA or Lockheed Martin. So that was a setback. So that was a little bit of different than what I thought I could do.
All right, that's interesting. I know a lot of people come to the US to live their American dream, right? I mean, it is a land of opportunities. But this has been really interesting. Well, for the next little bit, Geeta, what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep dive into your professional journey. And so my first question to you is, what was the very first job that you landed in your field in the US and how did you go about getting it? Was it like an internship? Was it a full-time position from the get-go as soon as you landed?
Yeah, so I actually came with a job because I was already working in India, right? So I came with a job through a consulting company, which gave me a ticket to come in, right? So I worked as a consultant in a couple of like CompuWare in Campbell here, working on like kind of extending what I was doing. So I worked on product called SCO Unixware, and that was like a consulting job, right? And then my next consulting gig was at IBM North Carolina, for which I had to move, right? I wouldn't say that I'm very proud about what I did back then, but it was again what was required in order to get in. So that was my entry, and I did not enjoy, because I, in a way that I like to belong what I do. So that not having that belongingness, that you are just somebody coming and you are given a piece of work that you do. So I left after that basically. So I worked as a consultant first job, then I went to New York and started my next chapter.
Right. So how did the IBM consulting gig actually start up? Like, how did you go about getting that and moving, states?
Moving states, right? So when IBM was like, I was working through this company, HCL, as a consultant, right? And so they, when I was working at CompuWare, after that, they were trying to place, I mean, I had actually another client here in US, California, but somehow they have been trying to open another account with IBM. So they floated my resume, and without telling me, actually, I got a call at like 7 a.m. California time, which is 10 a.m. East Coast time. A call one day, I woke up, I was like, what is it? Okay, we are calling you from IBM. We got your resume and we wanted to have an interview with you. So I went through the interview and apparently, I did well, and they wanted somebody. I was really upset because I'm mad. I did not want to leave California. So I went and fight with the, boss, like, what is this? Now we have been, apparently they have been trying to open an account with IBM because, one of the prestigious account any Indian consulting company would like to have. So that's how I kind of, got in, right? And that was North Carolina, so you had to move. So I had to move. I had to come coast to coast almost.
Wonderful. I mean, that is so nice that, someone actually took the initiative and actually floated your resume. That doesn't happen very often nowadays,
Right.
It was, again, different times, different, yes. So that's interesting. And were there any moves, Geeta, that you made that were simple or radical? I mean, in both your personal or professional life that got you to where you are today?
Yeah, that's a great question because, I am a lane changer. I mean, I do things without, I take chances a lot, right? So if you find something smells like interesting. So when I was in North Carolina, actually, I just happened to go to New York City, and I fell in love with the city, right? Right from like when you're landing, and it was at night. The city never sleeps, and you see this, lights all over, and And then I know the next day when I was walking, and that felt like home. I would say, I didn't know whether I will survive and whatever the job that will be, but I kind of anchored in, took a chance, I would say, a little bit. When I was supposed to come back to California, I had actually job to come back to California from North Carolina. And all of a sudden, I made a decision then and there that this is the city, this is New York is me, and I'm going to, right? So then I interviewed at Mount Sinai and joined there, right? So I would say that was one anchoring moment for me to be able to think. I didn't know anybody in New York, right? So on my feet that, yes, I can do it. Yes, this is a place that I want to live in, and I want to try healthcare. Like I never worked in healthcare, right? The first time. And thereafter, I started building my kind of, I would say, my network, right? So the people that hired me at Mount Sinai, the same person when my next job, when he went and started, work in Long Island, he said, "Hey, Geeta, I think you will be great for it, but you have to live the city life and come and live in Long Island. So why don't you drive in like one day and see, can you leave the city and live in Long Island?" So I think that was one, I would say, from a, like just changing my, like living on my own completely without knowing anything and just taking a chance, both on a personal and professional front, that started opening the door. Well,
Wonderful.
thereafter, always I have done something or the other that,
That is amazing. That is really amazing. And now, Geeta, you've been in senior leadership roles like for 9+ years. What leadership attributes did you exhibit early on in your career that made the difference or helped you transition more smoothly into senior leadership roles?
Yeah, so I think number one, I think the having the courage and the, that willingness to do anything, right? And the commitment and the dedication that I always had, like, through anything, we will figure it out, and do that not just as an individual contributor, like even though I was like not a line manager, but I always had a like, sense of like, let's work together, right? And figure it out who is good at what. So at many places, like, even though I was a tech lead without management, but I was always, naturally finding out who is good at what and how do we solve these problems together. So many of manager will come to me for giving like, feedback on their performance, or, so I was kind of doing that, in indirectly building that team, right? So I think that taking the courage, having the strength, and I was always a change agent, right? I'll push the envelope. There is always a way, there is a better way, right? And I think that's very much required, right? People look up to you, like when you, and being there, like I took many diving catches to save, a lot of production go lives, at the same time covering for people. I think just bonding team spirit that I showed, I think that kind of naturally helped me to go, collaborative attitude and whatnot.
No, that is really important. I agree. Wholeheartedly agree with that. To have, the courage, the confidence, don't let anything stop you. And also definitely building that bond and that rapport with your team, with people, because after all, people are basically, the capital behind, like,
Yeah,
moving a business, scaling a business as well. So that
yeah.
is great. That's some really great takeaways there, Geeta. What were some of your challenges with navigating your career to an executive leadership role, especially as a woman and an immigrant? And how did you overcome these challenges?
People say your strengths are your weakness, so I am very outspoken, and I say, I mean, you see, like there is no foreground jobs running. Like I say what I mean it, and I mean what I say, right? That goes to a certain extent, but sometimes it could backfire you, right? Yeah. So my strength is like, speaking that mind, as well as I like to crack humors. So sometimes, there is a fine line between like whether people want to hear that or not. So some of this actually I got a little bit burned in the earlier. And the secondly, I would say understanding the decision making framework in the process, right? It's one thing being a technocrat and the technical leader and architect, but when you are growing up, like, and there is, and I don't want to use the word politics, but it is how your organization really works and gels together. Who are the key players? Who are the decision makers, right? If you don't do the homework. So I have done things like, what is technically right by saying that, and that backfired because I have said things that was right against at the top level, somebody wanted to have an agenda with that, right? So what I learned with that, basically do your homework, figure out, slow down. It's okay to slow down to understand. First, you have to understand what works, right, in the organization. That doesn't mean you have to be, change your, decision-making process or, integrity, but not, if you don't know that, when to say, what to say, how to say, it's very, very important, right? So I got some coaching and grooming from my, people that have a lot of strength, confidence in me, who wanted to see me grow. So I was fortunate to do that, but I still make mistakes because,
We all learn though, right? Mistakes make us better. Experiences make us better.
But I'm very passionate, and I'm all about just get shit done, like move, and I don't have time for crap and politics. So, but as you grow in a global complex organization, there will be a bit of that. You have to just learn it along your way.
Right. And this actually shows, due to these practices, you have been able to propel forward. Nothing has held you back. So it has definitely worked. It's a tried and tested plan, I see. So that's amazing. And Geeta, I know data is such a sought after field right now. And a lot of roles are evolving into niche categories like artificial intelligence, virtual reality. What do you see as the future of data and its applications?
Yeah, I think data, everything will be centered around data. Not just will be, it is right now itself, right? And I think the means of what we can do with the data will change immensely, and it will be powerful, right? I think everybody will become like a data engineer or data scientist, right? And I mean, what I see in that this world, the technology is evolving so much, right? Pushing the compute to the data wherever the data is generated, because there is so many zillion devices, IoT devices, and everything is emitting data. But what will be critical is how do you do that, in a secure way? How do you do in an ethical way? Your privacy should be already, like, you have to honor the privacy of the data. And just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? So I think that convergence of ethics, privacy, trust, and security with data will be extremely important. So a lot of, innovation is happening, like if the cloud vendors, there will be a lot of, ecosystem merging happening, like Intel, AMD, Google, all coming together to do confidential compute and so on. So I think you will see a lot. And the way we talk about artificial intelligence, it won't be anything like, there won't be anything artificial about it. It will be a part of how the engineers will code, right? You will have much smarter algorithms already built in, available. And when I used to write a lot of algorithms back then, when we didn't have the cloud available, we have a lot more, right? And fast forward, it will be even more. So I think everybody will be a data scientist or data engineer in some form or the other. But applying your security, trust, privacy, ethics will be very, very critical to what we should do. And the converted, augmented reality, yeah.
Fantastic. That is great. I'm really excited to see how this is going to evolve, and how we're going to be able to use it more, regularly in our lives. So that is amazing, Geeta. And this has been extremely insightful. And with that being said, I will be handing over the next segment to my co-host Bhargavi, who will be asking questions pertaining to the immigrant students community at large.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Preeti.
Thank you.
So Geeta, a lot of students who engage with the Immigrant Project, they're here to look for their first professional jobs. And they would love to know from somebody who's on the hiring front, somebody like you who has built successful teams. So what do you look for while hiring graduate students within your team or company in the past?
So, a number one thing, of course, you have to be good at something, right? When you're coming in, understanding what your strength is, what you're good at. I look for people that are curious and hungry, right? And are you adaptive? Because things will change. So try to understand how, like, are you very set in your mind that this is only thing I want to do? Or are you actually, how open are you? How open are you to learn new things and being adaptive to the forces and, understand how you want? And the third thing is, like, team player, right? I mean, we don't have, I mean, if you're a smart jerk, like, there is no place for that, right? Smartness is good, but are you, looking to work as a team? So those are the three ingredients, like, look at what they're solid good at, how well throw them into a little bit situation that, can they come out of the comfort zone and explore? And the thirdly, like, can they work in a complementary, supplementary skills in a team, right? Because those, I mean, if you are good in that, and I think then your horizon will open up.
That's a very valuable piece of advice. And the reason I got my first job was also because my manager at that time saw that I had a hunger to learn and curiosity, which is extremely important. So that's very valuable. I mean, you can be very, very brilliant, but at the same time, if you're a jerk, then the team rapport takes a beating. So perfectly valid. So when students like enter the professional workforce, so there are a lot of challenges and you don't know how to navigate your career, and you get a lot of advice, right? From friends, family, managers, peers. So what is that worst piece of advice that you have received? And can you like name a few terrible pieces of advice which are just floating around and students think that's the way to go about?
Yeah, I would say may or may not be relevant, but what I have seen is like, stick to the lane, don't try too many things, right? I think that's a really bad. Like, you could be an engineer in anything, right? Engineer, graduate, whatever you have done, right? You need to be exposed to different things, especially when you are just, kind of shaping up your career. You don't know what you're good at really yet, right? I many times I got told, why do you want to try this? Why do you want to try that? Like, I think that's really bad. I mean, I like to encourage people, try it out, whether it is project management to anything in between, like whatever get exposed to different things, right? That's I have, but I still did it anyway. Then, yeah, I mean, sometimes like, don't speak up your mind. I mean, yeah, I mean, if people sometimes, if that is not an environment that companies actually encourage you to speak up your mind, you might be, a little bit screwed sometime, but you should always be encouraged to speak the truth, right? I mean, again, I got shut down, like, oh my God, what do you think? Like, you can just say whatever, like, be respectful, mindful. But if you have something that you see that is happening at workplace, you got to speak it out, right? Especially we immigrants, we are always like, okay, this is what parents say, this is what the teachers say, do as we say and follow the instructions, right? We are always told what we do and not allowed to speak up much. But I think this is a country that you should be able to do that.
That's a great point. I totally hear that there's a cultural element as well. People coming from different cultures might be trained to not speak up with seniors, with people you're reporting to, and that's totally valid. Thank you for sharing that. But on the flip side, there are a lot of people, and you mentioned that people you met in your career that who groomed you. So who are those mentors and role models which helped you shape yourself?
Yeah. Also, I was really fortunate to like people, I would say, that have like my own direct managers, when I was working at whether Mount Sinai or Aero Electronics, who actually put me into got me out of my comfort zone into things that I used to be like, behind the scene. I'm like a keyboard, you throw anything, Geeta can just code it and get it done, right? So, but they saw that I had this leadership qualities that they started giving me opportunities, right? So I wouldn't say always directly telling you that this is why I'm asking you to do. They won't tell me, but they will give me to lead some of those cross-functional projects. So I got to lead, as a very young, be on a project that working with the CIO to understand how to transform the business, to all the way, in a global leadership team as one of the youngest member to be able to represent. So those kind of, opportunities, giving me a platform that I had to go and present, sharpened my other skills, which was not just, developing software or algorithms, right? So I had mostly, I would say, my direct managers or managers, or sometimes business people that they will see that, they would come and give me something who is to be my internal customers or partners that have gone to, and I still have like people that I look up to. But I think as you grow up, you not only need mentors, you really need sponsors, right? Where you will see you'll get stuck in the middle there. Like a lot of people will come with the middle managers, but how many women are in the C level or the board level, right? That's where you really need who's going to be a sponsor, who's going to be championing you and presenting your case, not just making you better, but do your advertising for you, like championing for you.
Yeah, that's totally true. And I can imagine like ability is one thing, but it's a combination of opportunity, people who can sponsor you and set you up for success. But for some reason, let's say students do
Hmm.
not fall upon these opportunities. How would you recommend on seeking out mentors, or what are the channels and options which students have?
I think today's day and age, there are so many collaboration online channels, right? So there, you could even reach out to anybody in LinkedIn, for example. LinkedIn is a very good media that where I have to, talk to many students, right? Just, finding an interest and reaching out. LinkedIn is a very good, and a lot of user groups. And if you're talking about like, students in US, I think doing actually even in other areas, right? Take some projects, right? Take any apprentice work, and no work is like, just get exposed to. I think whether you are working in the library or somewhere, start doing something and shadowing. And it could be non your typical professional task that you're doing, but it could be help. You might find something. I feel like, skills are always transferable, right? So you can learn from any job, right? Whether I'm working in the grocery store or I'm, standing in a movie theater, there is a way of understanding how this works and apply that. So I would say this, if try to pick up some applicable skills from any job you can. And for seeking out to mentors, I mean, whether LinkedIn and even I think Facebook could be a media these days, right? You could find your friends and friends if you're trying to say having a speaking. I have been talking to friends like somebody who is a comedian. How do you help a comedian, and what kind of career path they might have other than stand-up comedian, right? And I have no comedy background, right? I mean, but I'm helping them, right? So I think there is always something that the students can. Um, and use the YouTube channel. I mean, that is a huge platform for just showcasing any talent. I think today's day and age, the digital channels are so much like helpful. We didn't have that. I didn't grow up like that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in what you said, in finding opportunities around you. Like it doesn't necessarily have to come to you, but trying to find things which may not be in your directly in the path or professional journey you're in, but just smaller things around you which can help shape you and your soft skills.
Right.
Totally valid. So what advice would you give yourself? You're a 20 something back in the day. I know you wanted to continue your journey in space, and you said it didn't happen, but what advice would you give yourself when you were
Yeah.
um,
I think, if I could roll the clock back, I would go and get a degree in, Stanford or MIT or whatnot. I did not, I don't have a degree in US, right? Because I came with a job, I needed to work, and I had to stop my PhD, when I was in India, because I needed a job, right? I had a financial thing going on. So I would probably go back and get a what does it mean to like get a feel of the Stanford campus or wherever, like MIT. Just I think we're all good. We can always get a good. I mean, that would be something I think I would like to do, and also have some fun, more fun, not just get so serious, right? I mean, I was always about just, get work done, like throw anything, I'll do the best job I can. But I think relax. I mean, I started to relax later in my career, like when I got surrounded by people, so like, Geeta, it's okay. Like, you just chill, right? So I think I would like to have more fun when I.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice for students who are listening to this. It's not just about work, so have fun while you do it. And like you said, there's something about the college experience, which is really enlightening. So thank you for sharing that. So switching topics a bit, I know you've been a leader for so many years, and diversity and inclusion has been such a trending topic in technology, especially. So what does diversity and inclusion mean to you? And as a leader, how do you think about an inclusive
Yeah.
workplace?
Yeah, so to me, the inclusive workspace, it's not just about whether you have immigrants or not, right? I think see that beyond, there's the first level check, right? Whether you have, minority representation, you have women, men, whatnot. But the way my thing is, does everybody have a voice, right? There are a lot of people that are, big mouth people versus like people that are quiet. When I think about in the team, like, do I have like anybody in the team that we have, like, do they have a voice that they can speak up? I go after the people, those timid ones, that, shut down very easily. And how do you create an environment in the team that they can open up and they can also get a voice to speak up, right? Um, and it is very important, especially like, when you're talking about technical engineers, right? I have worked with very smart engineers, but they are like, okay, my story is not that interesting. Why do I need to just let me go and do the coding? But helping them to also open up is a part of the way I think about diversity and inclusion in the team, because everybody in the team, if they're not participating, you are kind of losing that. It's not just a number, right? It's not just a number. I did a checklist of 70%, 30%, or whatever the target is, but how do you make them really a cohesive part of the team, and contributing, and then having a path that they can all grow, like giving them different responsibilities so that they can rotate and take on different roles within the team as well as within the organization. It is a huge part. I mean, and especially in the technical career ladder, like when I was at Veritas, I used to lead our technical career track, and there used to be so many women engineers that, entry point, you have tons of good, right after senior engineer, software engineer, like, some point they just drop. So technical director and distinguished engineers, we just got a funnel like this. So I used to do there, I would take a slice and do a women engineering mentoring program separately, so that they have, again, we can have a technical pool of, where we have a good enough representation, not just, women falling off the ladder after mid-career.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like you're saying that inclusion doesn't stop at representation. Just it's
Right.
not all about numbers, having an equal number of women and male. It's more like enabling them or empowering them to have a voice, an equal voice. And you mentioned that people drop off when you go up the funnel. So how do you think of widening that funnel for
And I think
underrepresented groups or people who
any other, I think we got to be really, really consciously looking at that. And again, it cannot be just as an annual performance review. Like, it is a continuous, and it starts from every level, right? Each of us have a responsibility. The way I think, whether you don't have to be a VP or a director, right? You could be your local team lead, right? And then as we are it is a shared leadership, right? Ecosystem. Each of us at each level have to genuinely care and consciously make an effort to start grooming. As soon as we start seeing that we are not having this, what can we do? Bring that to the next level attention, and maybe give them opportunities. Without that, this is going to be like annual exercise. We'll all talk about it and then go back to our daily job, right? So I think it has to start from the ground level, and that's what we were doing at Veritas, right in Pune. Like, every site, we started actually doing some programs, and it doesn't have to be big anything, right? Give them encouragement, give them some projects. First round we did at a corporate level, then we just did it at site level, right? Hey, take your ownership and drive, right? And we'll be there to help guide. We'll give a framework, but I think it begins at the ground level, and everybody has to take a part in that.
Absolutely. And you also mentioned about mentorship. Like it's good to be in a company which supports or encourages, inclusion and creates programs for people to thrive. And you also mentioned you mentor educational startups. So could you throw some more light on that?
I'll say a specific example in that. Actually, I'm currently working with my brother in India in building a SaaS platform for education. So, especially with COVID, right? So basically, like, everybody is going digital, right? No, we all know that. But how do you do that in a way, in a cost-effective way, as well as, that you can have in a low connectivity, intermittent connectivity, fashion. So offline, online mode in a platform, right? So I'm actually right now helping to SaaSify that, create a SaaS platform, and making a cloud native architecture, so that now you can have the whole e-campus, and it could be all metadata driven. So it could be a university, it could be an institute, it could be a primary school, it could be anything. And you can actually configure like different personas, whether you are a student or a teacher or in a super admin, to get that. So that's what I'm doing with them. And then open up that for whether you want to do streaming classes, bring in some experts, and make that content either online, offline available, so that you have a platform that you can curate content, right? One of the things is that you don't want to be in the business of creating all. So people should be able to curate their own content with the right set of authentication. And so that's what I'm kind of helping right now, give them the platform and the tools, so that people can now have a platform. I mean, I'm very, very passionate about education. I think one gift, if you can give to anyone, just empower, give them education, right? You and I wouldn't be talking here if we were not lucky enough to get that education, right?
That is really great, and such a great initiative, Geeta. Good luck with that, and we would love to know where you go with that.
Absolutely.
So, like you mentioned, it's not all about work. We need to have some fun. So we have some questions for you, which are outside of your professional journey. So for me personally, I think books have been truly instrumental in shaping my ideas and how I think. So what is that one book which you have gifted the most?
It depends on what stage of the career and whom, right? I mean, Jane Austen's Emma used to be one of my favorite, like, back in the days. But I used to read a lot of biography, back in the days, right? Whether, I'm from Calcutta in India, so Swami Vivekanand, like I used to read those kind of people, like, and that I will give, like, people I think get a lot of good, examples and kind of motivation. And I would say, fast forward now, I mean, if I'm giving it to a professionals, one thing I really learned is, free to focus. It really, really helps you to narrow down to what not to focus, and don't try to solve everything. So how do you narrow down and focus on maybe number 3 things that you can control and 3 things you should? So, I mean, Free to Focus is an amazing book. I like space. I mean, as you talked about, the giant leap, I mean, I give it to that. Or if you are, these days, right, a lot of people, I mean, from a biography perspective, I think Satya Nadella's Hit Refresh. I mean, I'm sure you read it. I mean, it's an amazing book. So the different people, I have given different books. And these days I do a lot of digital, ebooks learning, because I cheat myself to Audible. So, I've been reading, like, a lot of these days, like, how do you go digital to the last thing I was reading, actually, The Factfulness. That is a very good book. Again, we have done a book club at Zuora on that.
Yeah, Factfulness is one of my favorite books. And the book you mentioned around focus, I totally agree. You need to pick your battles. You can't solve everything under the sun. So the next question I had was around habits. Like a lot of the small habits, you don't have to do anything monumental, but the small day-to-day things greatly influence you and shape you to be a better person, and has a butterfly effect. So what are those 3 daily habits that keep you going?
Yeah, I would say number 1 is exercise, right? Wake up and push myself to do, whether, do, stretching, yoga, and as well as I do biking or whatever, right? So the exercise is my number 1 thing that I do. Second thing, I would say I read something. I have to learn something new every day, right? So whatever is going on in the world, I mean, I something, not politics. But technology wise, I am very hungry, right? I mean, that keeps me going. So I learn something, I get my oxygen for my brain, and then I have to build something, right? I mean, whether I, write, ship a software, or if I'm not working somewhere, maybe I'll try to make something, like I'll cook something, cookies or whatever, right? I mean, I need to have that creative juice coming out, right? And without that, I can't, right? I mean, ultimately, and those 3 combinations keep me going, right? You read something, so that your brain and mind are both fed, and now you deliver something that it takes your output. So now you have a combination of.
I really love that. Yeah, I call a day productive if I learn one thing, any one thing. And you
One
mentioned
thing.
you try to keep up to date with technology. So how do you do that? What are your sources for just keeping up to date with technology happenings?
Yeah, so I post COVID days, I used to go to a lot of meetups and or all this like CIO dinners or whatever, right? I can't do that now. Everything is virtual, but there are so many. I mean, the digital channels, right? Mostly, so I know if you follow the smart people, you will most likely catch, right? So if you look at what AWS, Google, Microsoft, these guys are doing, what's coming in the with the latest things, I follow them. And the other extreme, I look at startups, right? So I am dumb, I'm not that smart, but I follow smart people. So one, look at what the startups are doing. So follow that, with the TechCrunch news, right? Like get all those feeds, right? What is happening and what's happening with the big vendors. And those pretty much, I mean, there is not enough time of day, right, to read up everything, right? So those digital channels pretty much I try to do. And then I'll double click on when I have some, some interest area, then I'll double click. And when I'm exercising, that's my time to read also. I'll put on like something on the YouTube channel that I am reading right now. I mean, I will see if I'm learning confidential computing. So I'll just listen to a few things, or Zero Trust, Beyond Corp. Like that's my reading time, how I read basically. And I'm more of a video kind of reader than books reader in this. So I will listen, and then I capture by listening and watching than reading.
That's a great piece of advice. And I believe you're a good multitasker. While you're listening, you can manage other things. That's really great. So one last question. If you could have one bio description for the next 10 years and say, put it on your Twitter feed for the next 10 years, what would it be?
I would say, if you can dream it and imagine it, I'll make it happen with data and technology. So
Wow.
I imagine and I just do it, right? And how do I do it is with data and technology, basically.
That's awesome.
And every problem I can solve with that.
That really encapsulates your passion and what we have learned from you. So that's all for now. Thank you so much, Geeta, for coming here and talking to us. It was really insightful. And I know that students who are going to listen to this are going to find a lot of value in your journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Geeta.
you. Thank you, guys.